Hello everyone and welcome back to the second session of the Layered Performance Program, co-hosted by Avenues and H&N International. After a great first session on exercise factors in Asian production, today we want to move on to a slightly different topic, focusing on layer management under hot climate conditions, where we will include practical strategies to reduce the impact of heat stress on flock performance. But before we begin this highly awaited session, we would like to take a step back and answer some of the questions we received in our previous webinar. To do so, I would like to welcome back Xavier Arbe, General Manager of H&N International, who will be in charge of explaining and clarifying the questions sent through the chat. Xavier, thank you for joining us again.
Well, thank you, AgriNews, for giving me the chance to answer questions after my presentation. Thank you, everybody, for the questions you said, and let's start. I think there are three things we need to focus. You need to achieve the body weight of the pullet at the first 5 to 6 weeks. That's key point. Because if you don't have a good pullet, you are not going to be able to manage the exercise. Then, as we mentioned in the presentation, light stimulation should be at the recommended body weight. Don't do it based on age of the birds. So just wait for it and do it in the right moment. And then, from the point of view of nutrition, in the heat stress, remember is that the amino acids need to be balanced, and be sure that the energy source are not amino acids. So to avoid this one, please increase the energy needs in heat stress and include 1 to 2% of added oil in the diet. Well, the first primary one, I think, is going to be always the amino acid intake and the absorption of these ones. So just be sure that, you might have enough amino acids, but they need to be absorbed. The second one is going to be the energy requirements, especially in the hot climates. Remember that the requirements are going to be higher, so you need to factor it in your calculations. And also be sure that the amino acids are not used as an energy source. So therefore, in this way, you need to keep that one in mind, so you have enough amino acids and energy at the same time. Next one, from the point of view of exercise, is going to be linoleic acid. If you have around 1.4 in the diet, it will be enough. And also, I think I mentioned in my presentation, remember, is that the addition of the fat, the oils, could be palm oil, coconut oil, whatever you have available, increases the available amino acids, so you can get a bigger exercise. No, indeed no. If the diet in production has at least 2% of added oil, you are going to avoid those kind of issues. Well, you will have mortality, and the performance will decrease faster than the genetic potential. So, you need to work before to avoid these kind of situations, especially in the pullet quality. If you didn't achieve the body weight at week 5-6, you will need to delay the light stimulation to be sure that the body weight and the uniformity are correct at the beginning of the production. If you don't achieve the body weight at week 5 to 6 regularly with your flocks, you will need to check the feeder space available for the birds at that age. It is the main limiting factor we see in the farms, and it can't be overcome with a higher density feed. You can reduce a little bit the gap, but the feeder space is going to be the limiting factor for the growth of the chicks. I think I would recommend to check the amount of oil. The hepatoprotectors can help, but it sounds like something else going on. So check the levels of added oil, might be around 0.5. Therefore, I think you are short in that aspect, and also put it together with the performance and the quality of the pullet that you are getting. I don't think after 45 weeks low amino acids are required. Birds need amino acid based on the production. So if you are reducing amino acid after week 45, It might be because of your nutritionist wants to control exercise, but there isn't a physiological reason for it. So be aware that you don't really need indeed a reduction of the amino acids. You will have a bigger hen in production and you will be able to produce a bigger egg. However, it might not be very interesting if the market doesn't pay you the extra intake, extra cost of the production. So producing bigger eggs has an extra cost, but if the market pays you, go ahead. At the beginning, I mean the hens are going to produce a small egg, and that's something that we can overcome, especially when we see that you can make the hybrid diet. That is one of our recommendations. That it has high level of amino acids, and it will give you bigger eggs than what usually the management guide tells you. Please check on our website. Also, you can check in our different publications to learn more about this hybrid feed and how you can get bigger eggs from the beginning of production. So thank you very much for all the questions that you have sent. It was nice to have the chance to present and interact with everybody. And thank you also, AgriNews, to giving me this chance. And anyway, if you have more questions or any challenge, please don't hesitate and contact, because I really like to have these kind of discussions with the producers. So, further ado, I have to give pass. Is the time for my colleague Fernando Carrasquer, Dr. Fernando Carrasquer, that he is our global veterinarian, and I hope that he is giving you also a nice topic to discuss today.
Thank you very much, Javier, for these clear and insightful explanations. And without further ado, I would like to welcome our main speakers for today. Fernando Carrasquer Puyal, poultry veterinarian and H&N International. He will guide us through some of the main challenges laying hens face in hot climates and the practical measures that can help manage them on farm. Remember that similarly to the last session, you can leave your questions in the chat during the presentation, and Fernando will answer them at the beginning of our next session. Fernando, thank you for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for the invitation to Avenues Group. It's always a pleasure to work with you, try to share knowledge with our viewers through your different programs. So again, a pleasure to be here, really to collaborate with you and really to speak about one topic that I think is extremely relevant for Asian egg production, which is layer management under hot climate. So, well, first thing probably we need to define is what is hot climate. Well, we can make some jokes, okay, as you can see here in my screen. But as I always say, when you need to define something related to egg production, just ask to your hands. They know better than anyone. So if we want to know what is the thermal comfort zone, which means the temperature which our birds are feeling comfortable for growing and for producing, maybe first thing we need to understand is that our birds are homeothermic animals. What that means? That means that they can produce or lose heat, okay? They have the capacity of trying to, decide which will be their internal temperature. It's very funny, or it's one thing that is my opinion, it's very funny is that the hens, they do not born with this capacity, okay? Their chicks are poikilothermics, okay? What that means, this is a strange word. That means that they cannot control their internal temperature, okay? So it will change, it will vary depending on external temperature. were more or less as um, the lizards or the reptiles. Well, so we can say that chickens born as reptiles and die as mammals, okay? It's a little joke that I love to do. Okay, sorry, sorry about this. Okay, but any case, in adult laying hens, we have birds that have the capacity to control their internal temperature. And there is a range, okay, of temperatures, and not just temperatures, but relative humidities, where they will feel comfortable, and there is other range where they will feel okay, or maybe challenged um, by these environment conditions, or feeling extremely challenged, which means that they will need to take corrective measures themselves, or in a situation where their life is at risk. So in this table, you can see the combination, okay? And you can see that the higher is the relative humidity, the lower is the temperature we need to be in a risk zone, okay? And that's a problem in Asian conditions because in many, not in all for sure, Asia is a big continent, but in many of our production areas, we are having a high relative humidity. And what happened when the birds are confronted to this challenge with high temperatures? Well, the more they will be challenged, the worse will be the consequences. So, for example, in this table, I'm showing you that when we are working with less than 20 Celsius degrees, we have no problem at all. We just have an increased feed conversion, which can be a problem from the financial point of view, but not from the production point of view. 20 to 27 Celsius degrees is the ideal temperature for good performance and feed conversion. And when we move above 27 Celsius degrees, we start to have problems. First, we'll have problems in feed intake, then even further reduction in feed intake, and we will have our birds that start to reduce activity and have drops in egg production, in egg weight, in egg shell quality. Then, if we go above 37, then we will be, in more problems. We can start to see mortality in the heavier hens, and over 40, well, alarm clock, alarm bells, because we are in a situation where the birds uh, are in risk. I mean, and when I say the life of our birds is in risk. There is another thing that, in my opinion, is important to say, which are the priorities of our laying hens at different temperatures. Okay, when we are from 20 to, I will say, even 30, 28, well, mostly the priority will be our normal priorities in the life of a hen, which means eating, laying, having their social behaviors, well, being a bird, okay, or being a laying hen, that is. But when we go above this temperature, then the priorities of laying hens behavior change in a dramatic way. Okay, then their priority will be no longer eating or laying, but surviving. Okay, and they will, change all the behaviors, all the things they do during the day to try to overcome the challenge of this high temperature by trying to reduce the internal temperature. That will take a lot of energy, a lot of time, we are going to see this in detail. Okay. So here you have the consequences of birds being challenged by high temperatures. Okay. We can say that we have four types of changes. Okay. First, we have behavioral changes. Okay. As I was saying, the birds change their behavior to try to adapt to and to overcome these difficult conditions. Okay, so they spend less time feeding, they spend more time drinking, they start to panting. Okay, we will speak about this later. They try to move less, they try to lose heat by elevating their wings, or putting their breasts in the ground, as you can see in this design. Well, the behavior is fully oriented to lose temperature. Okay, we'll have some changes in production, as I say, higher mortality, lower feed intake, poor FCR. That's funny, but we will see this later on. If the feed intake is going down, why the FCR is going up? Uh, Reduce body weight, reduce egg lay, and reduce egg quality. Okay, so all the main parameters of egg production will be degraded in such conditions. Then we have the physiological changes. Okay, we will have a oxidative stress. We will have acid-base imbalance, respiratory alkalosis. Okay, what that means? That means that not just the behavior, but all we see the metabolism of the bird have changed the priority from normal priorities, okay, to losing temperature, okay, and that's the consequences. Okay, we will see this in detail. We'll have also increase in the ratio heterophils leukocytes, okay, which is, if you don't know, the golden rule for measuring chronic stress in laying hens. Okay, so we will have a big problem with uh, chronic stress. Okay, I will show you some slides later on. For sure, the cecal microbiota also will have changes. Okay, as is part of the bird itself. And finally, we'll have some changes in many, I will tell you, hormones, which is normal. Okay, I'm telling you, the bird is changing their priorities in a radical way to try to decrease this internal temperature for surviving. And for sure, then it should be that we have a change in the hormones. Okay, as the hormones are more or less the messengers, the internal messengers are in the body of the laying. Okay, I want to show you this because it's very important. Okay, it's how the birds do thermoregulation. Okay, remember that we have four types of ways for losing or gaining temperature or heat. Okay, radiation, convection, conduction, and evaporation. Okay, in adult laying hens, conduction is not really an important thing. Okay, convention it is, radiation somehow, okay, and evaporation is the only one that can increase in a dramatic way when we are having problems of high temperatures. What is the problem of evaporation in laying hens and in birds in general? Well, that the birds don't sweat. Okay, the only possibility that they have for having evaporation is pumping. Okay, and that, as you will see later on, will have consequences. Okay, but this is the only way they have for losing water, or for evaporating water, and then losing temperature by increasing evaporation. As you can see in this really old research, okay, when the temperature is going higher and higher, convection and radiation possibilities of the birds for losing uh, heat or temperature is getting down, and the only uh, possible adaptation that the bird will have is increasing evaporation, so increasing panting, okay, which is not a good thing in many ways. We'll see this later, okay. Uh, Yes. Oh, just one point. This is in a normal condition. Later on, we will see that we can increase the losses by convention by having a good ventilation. Okay, but that's another thing. This is in normal conditions with no ventilation, with laboratory conditions, we can say. I was speaking before about this problem on the panting, okay? Because this is that's why we have a respiratory crisis coming, okay? Because yes, the birds will try to lose as much as water as they can, okay? For trying to lose temperature. But as a lateral effect, they also will lose a lot of CO2, okay? And this CO2 will have have a importance in blood, okay, and for the pH and for the balance the of the electrolytes, and also have a impact in the kidneys and in the metabolism of carbonate, okay, and that for sure will have consequences also, okay. In this case, first in the balance of the electrolytes in blood. Second, as we are losing carbonate, okay, in the Excel quality, among others, okay. A funny thing or another funny, well, maybe not funny, but interesting at least, consequence of high temperatures is that our energy for maintenance will increase. And that for me is quite counterintuitive, okay? Because we have been thinking, I mean, or at least in, when we were at school, that the lower is the temperature, the higher is the energy for maintenance, okay, for the birds and for animals in general. And that makes sense, as they need to use more energy for heating it up, okay, as we say before, laying hens are homeothermal animals. But this is true, but this is not true in the other way, okay? Because when the temperature is over certain level, the energy for maintenance will not decrease but increase. And if you think that make perfect sense, as well, I have told you just a minute before, there is so many things that the bird need to prioritize for trying to decrease the body temperature, that these things will consume a lot of energy. Okay, I'm speaking, for example, about panting. Okay, this is a movement that or activity that is really energy consuming. Okay, and well, that energy need to come from somewhere. Okay, it's not, that's just an example. There's other things that are happening in the metabolism or in the activity of the birds that are also energy consuming. Okay, and then for sure the maintenance energy needed will go up. Okay, and not down. That will make that the energy that we have available for production will decrease, as the birds need more energy for maintenance. It is true that at a certain moment, when the birds are facing high temperatures, they will stop to produce, and then the energy for production will go down. Okay, but at some moment, maintenance will take energy for production due to high temperatures, and that's for me is a well, at least interesting thing. Then we have oxidative stress. Ah, my dear friends, we speak not enough about oxidative stress. Let me be clear with you. This is a big problem that we have in laying hens. Remember, we are now birds that can reach 100, 110 weeks in high level of production. And then the metabolism is becoming more and more something we need to think about. And oxidative stress, when certain circumstances are given, is a problem. But if we have birds which are facing high temperatures, so they are prioritizing losing temperature, okay, body temperature, yeah, oxidative stress will be no longer a priority for them. Okay, and then as you can see, there is plenty of free radicals that will be produced in higher rate in the body, and that will have a really negative effect in the health of our birds. And when I speak about oxidative stress, I'm a veterinarian, so I need to go to the next step, which I'm really interested in, okay? Which is the immune system. For sure, immune system will be affected if we are exposing our birds to long-term high temperatures, okay, which can be producing a chronic stress, okay. As you can see in this graph, you see we have the heterophilis leukocytes ratio, which I told you this is the golden system for measuring chronic stress in laying hens. And as you can see, the more extreme is the heat stress that we are exposing to our bird, we are exposing our birds. The higher is this ratio, so the higher is the chronic um, the chronic um, the chronic stress that we are exposing to our birds. But that have also an impact in immune system. Okay, and also you can see in this work from Masali 2004 very very clear. Okay, as we have the T cells proliferation, B cells proliferation, total white blood cells count, and the antibody titers against external antigen. And it's also very interesting here because we can see that when we are exposing the birds to cyclic high temperature, the birds, at least for at the beginning, try to adapt, and there is a response of the immune system. Okay, remember the immune system sometimes responds to things that is not just pathogens, okay, but to situations of stress. But if we expose those birds to a heat stress that is higher and is, for a long time, what we will see is there is a depletion of the immune system. Okay, so yes, heat stress can have also an impact in immune system, and then in our capacity to have a good immune protection by using vaccines or others, and having a good um, laying hen health. So many things, many bad news. Okay, let's speak now a little in how to cope with all these things. So how can high temperatures be managed in egg production? Let me be clear. We have two options. We can go for corrective measures or mitigating measures. Okay. If we apply corrective measures, we correct. Okay, we will solve the problem of high temperatures. Okay, and then we'll take back our birds to the thermal comfort area by decreasing the temperature in our houses. Okay, and I will explain you 3 key points for doing this. If we cannot do this, or if these corrective measures are not enough, okay, we always can also have mitigating measures. Okay, but let's be clear on this. Mitigating measures are just doing what they are saying that they do. They mitigate the effects of high temperatures, but they will not solve the situation. Okay, so there is a 5, 6 points that we need to cover. Okay, and we will. So corrective measures. Okay, we now do techniques for reducing the perceived temperature in egg production at the level of our laying hens. Okay, there is more techniques that can be used. Yes. Okay, I have plenty of friends of mine. They are industrial engineering. Okay, or they are doing industrial engineering as for making their lives. And each time I explain them that we work with this, they tell me, "Oh, but there is better systems to, put the temperature down in a house." The reality is that probably they don't know that we need to decrease temperature in a high volume, or houses having a high volume, plenty of laying hens, and for a cost that need to be as low as possible. Okay, so being clear, we have just two options. Or we use wind chill systems, which is based in air speed, or we go for evaporative cooling, which is based in the water transition from liquid to gas. Let's speak from these two. But first, speaking of these two, I need to tell you one very important thing. Good isolation is a prerequisite for good ventilation. Okay? If you are not having a good isolation in your houses, so sorry, but it's almost impossible that you are having good ventilation in these houses. Okay? And if you are not having good ventilation, it's impossible that you can have or you can use in the right way neither wind chill or neither evaporative cooling. So this is a prerequisite. Okay? And be extremely careful in having a excellent insulation at the level of the roof, okay, which is an area where we have a good part of the interchange of heat into our house. Well, we have wind chill effect, okay? And what is wind chill effect? Well, wind chill effect is we expose our birds to air having a certain speed, okay, and that will change the perceived temperature for those birds, okay. Here I'm showing you some how good it can be, okay, in different air speeds and different and the different number of Celsius degrees that the birds will perceive less, okay. You can see that in broilers there is a strong difference between 4 and 7 weeks. Probably this is due to the feathering. Okay, birds that are not well feathered, they are extremely sensitive to airspeed, and probably this is not the best technique that we can use on them. Okay, but it's working very nicely in full feathered birds. Okay, as we have in production, and is giving a strong advantage as they decrease the perceived temperature. Okay, just remember, okay, just remember that for having this wind chill, normally the system we use or the system we use more often, okay, is tunnel ventilation. Okay, tunnel ventilation, where we can expose our birds, all of them, to air speed going from 3 to 4 meters per second. Okay, but do not be mistaken uh, between tunnel ventilation, that is what is in the bottom, okay, to what is having the fans in one extreme of the house. Okay, the example is in the top is not tunnel ventilation. Okay, this is a combi ventilation. Normally, this is a transition in a poultry house from other types of ventilation to tunnel ventilation. When we are working with tunnel ventilation, the only place where we can get air is from I would say from the head of the house, and it need to go all the house in a single way and having a good speed. Okay, and this is a very important thing. If not, because I see this many places around the world, there is so many people thinking that they are working with tunnel ventilation, so they are using wind chill, and they really are not doing it well. Okay. Then we have evaporative cooling systems, which is something is very easy, okay, to understand. It's not easy, but it's basic physics, okay. When there we are taking hot and dry air, okay, we are making them to go through a evaporative panel or path with water. a part of this water will go into there, okay? And by doing this, it will need heat, okay? So it will take the heat from there. So it will cool there, okay? This is working very nicely, okay? But they have a problem, especially when we speak about Asia and countries with a um, high humidity, okay? Which is, as you can see in my graph, that the higher is the relative humidity, the lower is the effectiveness of these systems, okay? And it's a pity because also these systems are working better in higher temperatures than in lower temperatures, okay? But if we are in a country where high humidity is present, maybe these systems are not performing as well as they do in other parts of the world. And that's a problem. Okay, let's move to mitigating measures. Okay, what we can do, even if our corrective measures are not working well or we cannot implement them in a right way, what we can do to mitigate high temperatures. Well, the first one, sorry for starting by this. I know you don't like this, me neither, but that's reality and we need to speak about this. Well, we need to go for a decrease in stock intensity, okay? And in this case, yes, less is more, okay? I know that everyone loves to work with a high stock intensity because that gives you the opportunity of having more eggs, having the same number of production houses. But if we are not having the correct equipment and we are exposed to high temperatures, my dears, this is not a good idea. Okay, as you will probably have less eggs per hen, and at the end of the day, your birds will be not enough productive. So when we work in areas with high temperature, we are bound to think in working in lower stock intensities. I know it's not a good news. I know this is something we want to avoid. Uh, Still, I really think we are bound to this. As the rest of the mitigating measures I want to show you later on, they're having an effect, but this is the one having the higher effect. Then we have the drinking water, okay? And remember, normally we say that it's an essential nutrient. Here is even more important than essential nutrient. It's critical, okay? We need to assure that the birds are having, you know, uh, water which is with the right temperature, so from 15 to 25 Celsius degrees, and that they can get as much as they want. As you can see in this graph, birds exposed to high temperatures can easily double their intake in water or even go higher than double, okay? So water and fresh water is critical as mitigating measure for high temperatures. Avoid water temperatures above 30 Celsius degrees, okay? Because if they cannot eat, they have a high temperature and there is no water available, then next thing that you will have in your farm is high mortality, okay? So assuring a good supply of fresh water is critical for not having a disaster in our farms. So we have feed management, okay? And at that point, we need to deliver feed when they can eat. That's the thing, okay? If we have high temperatures during the midday, well, you can deliver as much feed as you want, they are not going to eat it. Okay? Why? Because they are prioritizing at this moment of the day to lose body temperature, okay, for avoiding, dying. So the birds will be not interested at all in feed, but they will be just interested in losing temperature, okay? So what we can do, we can feed during the coldest periods of the day that normally, depending on your country, depending on the natural light that you have in and the day length of the natural of your area. Okay, I know in some of Asiatic countries is 12 hours of the day. In others you have variation because you are in the south or you're in the north hemisphere. It depends. Okay, but in any case, try to feed them in the coldest moments of the day that normally are, in the dawn or in the dusk. Okay, and in the middle of the day, sometimes we need to just work for having empty feeders. Okay, as if the temperature is too high, it doesn't matter that there will be feed available because the birds will be not interested in them. So we need to change our feed management for assuring that the birds have feed enough in this moment of the day where they can eat this feed, okay? Or they have the opportunity of feeding. Good. Then this is one of the things I really, 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 and I will say it 20 times more, really, really, really advise you to implement to use midnight snack, okay? In hot weather countries, this is a must. In not hot weather countries, this is an excellent idea, okay? Because it have eh, more advantages than just giving you the opportunity, or better than this, giving your birds the opportunity of feeding during a period of the day where temperature will be lower, okay, which is the night, okay. It depends of how high is the place you have your house. The difference, your farm, I mean, the difference between day and night will be higher or lower, but any case there will be some kind of difference, okay, and that's a big opportunity. This is something we need to use in countries where we are facing with with high temperatures. It's a must. Then we have summer diets, okay, which is ask your nutritionist to prepare for you diets which are higher in energy, higher in amino acids, higher in calcium, they improve electrolyte balance, they increase some kind vitamin supplementation. But let me be clear on this. Your nutritionist, I'm 100% sure he will do a great job. Okay, well, 90% sure. Uh, but but if you have 20% decrease in feed intake, your nutritionist or 25, well, he cannot compensate by a summer diet the nutrients your birds are losing for having a 20% decrease in feed intake. So again, this is a mitigating measure. Okay, this is a good idea. Speak to your nutritionist. Take into account that still we need to have a general idea of how we want to deal with feed and nutrition to our birds. Okay, but certain moments of the year it could be a tool. But again, don't expect miracles from summer diets. They cannot compensate a loss of 20% of feed intake. Okay, this is not possible. And finally, we have the supplements. Okay, and yes, this is my final slide because I want to put this at the end. Okay, because this, as I say, is a welcome bit extra help. Okay, this is not or cannot be your main mitigating measure, but yes, when you have taken all the others we have been speaking about, that could be a great idea. Okay, if you check what we have there, we have vitamins and minerals that mostly are helping in oxidative stress, the electrolytes for trying to have less problems with electrolytes imbalance that will come from the respiratory alkalosis. The phytochemicals, well, they do so many things that is difficult to say exactly how they work. And the osmoids, again, they are working with this, or they are helping in this homeostasis, or sorry, in having a good work in the body, of helping to rebalance certain metabolic roles. So all of them are welcome. All of them are very good idea. But again, they are just mitigating, and this will be a mitigating tool that we use with other mitigating tools. So these are my conclusions. I will be quick because I think I took more time than I was assigned, as usual. Just remember, in hot and humid climates, we have a real challenge with a high temperature. Second, we have right now the technical capacity to cope with these high temperatures. Okay, the problem is, well, they are expensive investments, and second, they don't work as good in certain areas as in others. Okay, especially if we have higher ambient humidity. Okay, that will be more tricky to deal with. And then mitigating measures, yeah, it need to be put in place when we are working in countries where we have this problem, and we need to go as long as we need with them, okay, for trying to keep our birds alive and having, not a disaster in production. Still remember that they do not resolve the underlying problem, which is high temperature. And with this, I'm ready for your questions, but as you know how is the system we are working these days. So please send your questions, and in the next season we'll have in, I think it's 4 or 5 weeks, I cannot remember. Please check the agenda, that you will find all the information. But at this next episode, I will answer all your questions, as Xavier have done in this episode. So thank you so much for being with me. And during this, in my opinion, so interesting talk, I think we have covered things that are really interesting. Thank you again to AgriNews for the invitation, for being here. And well, ready for your questions. See you in the next episode. Bye bye.
Wow, this was a truly great presentation. I would like to thank you, Fernando, for your time and for carefully explaining and updating us on how we can improve our layer management today on hot climate control. And thank you everyone also for watching, and all the people that sent in questions during the session. As mentioned earlier, Fernando will answer them at the beginning of our next live webinar, where, to give you a heads up, we will focus on lighting programs for optimal performance. Stay tuned, and we hope to welcome you again in September for our next session.